I'm Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to Urban Health Weekly. I'm here with my friends Jackie and Lou, and we are going to get started. Before we jump into the topic du jour, remember we were talking, we couldn't remember the swipe left, swipe right.
Yes.
It was Tinder. That was the site that I couldn't
remember. Oh my God, how did I blank on that?
I know. We blanked on it because we're old. That's how we blanked.
Old.
We're old and we're obviously not out there dating. That's how we
Right.
Are you a veteran on it now?
No, I'm not a veteran on anything. I just want to come back with, because it was bothering me so much that none of us knew the name. It was like, gosh. Anyway.
All right, so I won't start the subsite, The Girls of Urban Health Today.
Yeah, no, let's not do that. So, did you see the new Sex and the City show, And Just Like That?
I did not, but I keep hearing about it.
So I saw it, and because I used to watch Sex and the City. Did you ever watch Sex and the City?
I did back in the day. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So they came up with this new one, And Just Like That, which is now dealing with the ladies being in their 50s. So they're not young professionals anymore. They're older. They're navigating this new time and all this
right
stuff. But what happened was in the scene heard around the world, Carrie's life love, Mr. Big, her husband, John Prescott, took a ride on a Peloton, and then shortly afterwards died of a heart attack. So
wow.
So it was just really shocking how that whole thing went down, because anybody who cycles knows that cycling improves your cardiovascular health,
right,
and basically adds years to your life. And Peloton stock actually went down after that.
Almost
I
20%.
saw that.
The stock went down because I guess people panicked, like, oh, I got to get away from this stock, which was interesting. But then Peloton went and they shot a commercial afterwards, basically saying that Big faked his death and he ran off with the Peloton instructor.
Oh, I didn't see that.
That was hilarious. So they're like sitting in front of a candlelit fire, and he's like, oh, should we go for one more ride? And then what's that guy's name who did Ryan something? He's married to Blake Lively.
Ryan Seacrest?
Not Ryan.
Ryan
Reynolds.
Ryan
Reynolds. Thank you, the Canadian guy. Ryan Reynolds. Yes. So he does the voiceover, and he goes, and just like that. And then he's like talking about all the benefits of riding the bike. And then he goes,
they recovered fast, huh? They were right on it. They knew not to wait on that. But how did they get in that trouble to begin with the product placement? Don't you have to have
because a lot. So as you know, with Sex and the City, a lot of these products, they want their product displayed on the show, because being on the show, brings sales.
Right.
And so they did like any other product, Jimmy Choo and Louboutin and
right,
Prada and all these, they want to be front and center. They want to be seen. They want their product to be seen being used by these stars. But they didn't know when they agreed to it that was what it was going to be used for. They had no idea.
Did they say they didn't agree? Like it's not part of like the contract, where like
no, it's not part of the contract. You know what? I bet you next time they're going to be very careful, and they're going to want to know how their product is being used. But they didn't know. They had no idea.
Oh,
they just knew it was going to be in them, that the Chris Noth, the actor, was going to use it.
Yeah.
But that was all they knew. They had no idea that they were going to do this to them. It kind of did them dirty.
Yeah. Well, there's two threads here. One is what happened to Peloton as a company. When we had the pandemic, all the people that were gym rats, they
bought Peloton.
They craved for activity, and what they did is they ordered Pelotons. But what happens is in our world, if you sell 20 bikes this year, you're going to be expected to sell 22 bikes next year.
Oh, in terms you have to top those sales.
Right. They don't.
Oh.
Nobody wants to hear like, okay, last year everybody bought the bike because they were at home. Now everybody's back to the gym, so it's back to they don't want to hear
like,
that.
what are you going to do this year?
So it's also,
how are you going to top that?
What are you going to do for me lately?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, this company's under a lot of pressure.
Yes, because they lowered their prices, and then that still didn't move the needle.
Oh, and then this happened.
And they're doing product placement, and then
because Peloton's not the only show in town. There's also what's the one that Equinox uses?
Soul Cycle.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There's My Fitness. There's a bunch of them competing in that space.
All
so
right.
It's not just Peloton, and Peloton is like, I think, probably the most expensive. Yeah,
they're all within a couple $100.
Yeah, they're all expensive. I know that they're all expensive, but I'm talking.
I remember during the pandemic, like early part of the pandemic, in my development, that truck was pulling up, and Peloton bikes were getting delivered all around me. I was seeing it every day. I would see like at least 2 getting delivered.
Yeah, it was like, there's that news then again. Every day.
Exactly.
Peloton truck.
Yeah.
Where Peloton differentiates itself from others is that and Soul Cycle does a little bit of this, but not as much. Peloton has a very long list, a deep list of trainers, has a lot of live shows, allows you to compete,
I think now they have that app. You can just get the app also, right? With the thing. And
it's subscription based. You can get
and a lot of their instructors are like influencers in the health space and such.
Right.
By the way, this is not an advertisement.
I was gonna say.
Not endorsing them.
I saw some articles.
Like he had a personal relationship with the by personal, he knew who she was. With the trainer, people like start feeling like they have a personal relationship.
Well, and the premise of the show is that the premise of that episode was that he was going to be doing his 1,000th ride, and apparently, what happens on your 1,000th ride is they personalize the ride, and they're talking directly to you and no one else. So he was looking forward to his 1,000th ride.
Oh my God, that is quite a twist.
Yeah, and so my thing is,
they have to sue, right?
rides.
They have to sue. They have to get they have to.
Well, they can't. I don't think they can. I don't think they can. They just have to know better next time.
The bike didn't kill you. I mean, the guy died because the guy died.
So they had their doctor. Their doctor came out and said, "Look, he also lived. He lived an extravagant lifestyle with red meat and smoking
a cigar, right?
Wine and all that other stuff." And they're saying that if anything, the cycling added to his life, because I think it was in season 6 that he ended up in the hospital or something like that.
Yeah, he had like an angioplasty in season 6.
Yes. So they're just doing damage control right now. But my whole thing is, when I saw it, he was still. Well, I'm sorry if this is a spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it. But if you haven't seen it by now, come on.
I saw a clip.
Yeah, he hadn't died.
Right.
At that point, by the time she got home and saw him, he was still alive. And I'm just wondering why the hell her first instinct wasn't to immediately perform CPR and dial 911.
I guess
she stares at him, he stares at her, and I'm just screaming at call the ambulance.
Apparently, a lot of people were doing that because people were writing all over on their blogs that's what people were yelling at the screens. Call 911.
Yes. And I'm just, why is she standing there? Call an ambulance, for heaven's sake. Call 911. And she's just standing there. And the next thing, she rushes over and she's like, Bear! And she's crying. And I don't know. I guess the scene was supposed to be like a dramatic.
Moving. And they have to move the plot along so she can get back out there. So,
yes, I guess. But in any event, I just didn't understand why, knowing his history, why she didn't immediately call 911. Why she stayed scared of him.
So it was not a good public service announcement, that bit. Yeah. What the character should have done is call an ambulance, call 911.
Call an ambulance and try to perform CPR
and then immediately do chest
compressions. Exactly.
Chest compressions, right.
Yeah. She should have done that.
And usually 911, I dealt with a little of this on the corporate side. Emergency, whatever. But the way the first thing you do is call 911. The next thing you do, and keep them on the phone, because 911 will have medical experts there that will tell you what to do. They will transfer you if you're in an emergency situation. So that happens. And that's something that, and if they don't give it to you, request one. Say, can I be put on a line with a medical expert? And that person will put you on. The next thing is make sure all your doors are open.
Your doors are unlocked. They tell you, unlock your front door.
Right. Unlock your front door so that when they get there, they have easy
That's
access.
a little difficult with a penthouse, but okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, your front door, and then you know.
Well, the elevator is your front door, and you have to get past the doorman, but okay.
Yeah, but yeah, in terms of
her first call should have been 911. Her second call, as she's doing the chest compressions, is to let the doorman know that they're coming and let them up immediately.
Right.
But hindsight's always 2020. I just thought it was interesting that of all the things to do, they did that, and I felt like they did
for drama. It was a disservice, right?
Because also now people are like are frightened, like, oh, can I cycle anymore? You know, is it going to kill me? Or I had a heart condition. Should I even start cycling? Yes, you absolutely should. It improves your cardiovascular health. There's no question about it. Don't be afraid of getting on a cycle, please, if it's your thing.
If it's your thing, right?
Yes. I mean, there's also jogging and treadmill and stuff like that, but those also have their own pitfalls. You know, plenty of people have had, you know, incidents with treadmills, but in any event, that doesn't stop people from still using treadmills, you know. So that's please, people, anything that's, you know, going to improve your health, improve your cardiovascular fitness, please do it. Don't shy away from that. So and that was
not smoking.
Yeah, and maybe lay off the cigars and the
cigars before you go on your bike.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen to this, guys. Coronavirus has been found to infect fat tissue. From the start of the pandemic, the coronavirus seemed to target people carrying extra pounds. Patients who were overweight or obese were more likely to develop severe COVID-19 and more likely to die. Though these patients often have health conditions like diabetes that compound their risk, scientists have become increasingly convinced that their vulnerability has something to do with obesity itself. Now, researchers have found that the coronavirus infects both fat cells and certain immune cells within the body fat, prompting a damaging defensive response in the body. I was listening to this scientist give a lecture like a couple of months ago. I forgot his name. It might have been like Dr. David Katz or something like that. I could be wrong. But in any event, he said something he's like one of these naturopath scientist doctor types.
Right.
And he said, if you ever want bad medical information, read the New York Times. Because in the article, they were talking about stuff that really kind of had, I guess maybe on some level, they don't want to get too deep into the science, but like, if you're going to write a science article, like write the science article, right? Like Scientific America did a huge, do you remember I showed you that Scientific American breakdown of how the coronavirus?
Yes.
So the reason that the fat is problematic is the amount of ACE receptors in fat tissue. It has more ACE receptors than even in the lungs, which if you remember, a lot of people were having lung issues with the first round of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. I mean, the virus simply loves ACE receptors. Now, this is what I got off the NIH website. Human ACE2 gene expression is higher in both human subcutaneous adipose tissue, that's fat tissue, and human visceral adipose tissue than human lung tissue. This critical discovery implies that adipose tissue is susceptible to SARS-CoV-2 infection via the ACE2 receptor. Now, if you remember also in the Scientific American article that did a fantastic job of explaining how it worked. They also use sugar to hide themselves, the virus, from your immune system defenses. And this is why the combination of obesity and diabetes is so lethal when you catch COVID.
That's a really good, clear explanation. That's a really useful explanation.
And I just felt that they weren't really all that clear in the article, but in any event, that's what the problem is. So it's really important, people, this time, especially if you're not going to get vaccinated, or if you're like an older individual, really cut down on the sugar. Try to lose weight if you can. I know a lot of people are hunkered down and putting on the extra pounds and stuff like that because you're not as active and you're not going out. But, if you could do yourself a favor and really try to reduce the sugar and lose some weight, and also up your vitamin D intake, that could really go a long way, and mask wearing, of course. But, that could really go a long way for protecting your health from the ravages of the virus.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I recently, over the last 2 years since the pandemic, I lost a lot of weight.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, and some of it had to do with you explaining to me near the beginning of the pandemic, where you talked about that there was mounting evidence that the virus was hiding behind sugar.
Yes.
Hiding behind sugar. And that made me really start to take more note of my type 2 diabetes and really get my glucometer. And I bought that, and I really started to monitor my sugar intake. And then over time, I've lost a lot of weight. I'm curious, when you lose weight, you really don't lose the fat cells. Like the obesity, you're creating new fat cells, but you never really lose them.
You don't lose them, but they shrink.
They shrink. So I'm curious to know.
And if you go into enough of a burning, like when you were originally doing the intermittent fasting, your body does use up some of that fat. So you don't have the same amount of fat.
So you have not the same amount of fat cells?
It's not the same amount of fat cells, and the fat cells that you have shrink.
Okay, because I would have experienced autophagy. I'm curious to know if I have these shrunken fat cells that are lingering, even though I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I've reduced the fat. Is it the cells themselves or what's inside the cells? Do the cells need to be, is it the fat cells themselves that are making me vulnerable to the coronavirus?
It's like the more fat cells and the bigger they are, and the more you have, the more
we don't know if the ACE, when you shrink your fat cells, I lost weight and my fat cells would have shrunk, and maybe I lost some. Would I still have these linger? Does that still make me vulnerable? I'm just curious about that.
Because of the fact that, you have other, your body chemistry now is much more optimal. So you don't have as much fat.
And it's my sugar is under control now.
Right. So your sugar is under control because it's not floating around in your bloodstream.
Right.
And C, you don't have the fat cells that you do have are smaller. So you don't want to be in a situation where you have zero fat, because that wouldn't be.
Can't have that. There's a protective component. Right.
Right. Exactly. But you don't want to be in a situation where you have an abundance of fat. Because that's an invitation, because the more fat you have, the more ACE receptors you have concentrated in particular areas, like in your abdomen and these places. Right. It's funny because I saw on a blog somewhere where someone they were talking about the disparity, how it's affecting people of color at higher rates than it's affecting white people. Yeah. You're being very silent about this whole thing, but
I'm here counting my fat cells as we talk. We're all trying to keep my stomach in, my chest out.
Feeling self-conscious.
Yeah, I mean, for a second I died on the Peloton. Now fat cells going on. I mean, this is not being a good show for me so far.
Well, so they were talking about the disparity of Black and brown people dying at higher rates. And then I remember, because I always read the comments, because I'm always curious what people think of this stuff when they read it.
Right.
And someone said something, I think it was a clinician. And she said something along the lines of really? We're not going to talk about the fact that a lot of these people are obese? And I was just like, And no one responded to the comment.
Yeah, that's very loaded. Okay.
But I thought that was really interesting that this clinician said this comment and no one even addressed it or said, hey, that's a good point. Like no one said anything. They just completely ignored the
I think because that's also like a bit of a smoking bomb. The whole like, is that too loaded? I mean, I recognize that the physician wanted to say it, but is it too loaded?
How is it? Well, how would it be loaded?
I don't know. People feel like they're being shamed or, judged harshly.
I just thought it was interesting that she said it.
Right. She went there but
and
really
here we are, months
confirming
later.
her thoughts.
And Dr. Lady, you're vindicated because
yes.
Here it is. Now the
right.
science is finally admitting, what the deal is. Mm-hmm. But I just thought it was interesting.
All right, so let's take our first break, and we'll be right back.
Yes, we'll be back.
Okay.
From the Lower Nine to Uptown, Mid-City to the West Bank, we got you covered, New Orleans. WHIV 102.3 FM.
And we're back. And have you heard about this new eye drop for presbyopia?
I have.
Yeah, it's called Vuity. And apparently it's supposed to lessen the need for reading glasses for millions of people. So according to the American Academy of Optometry, presbyopia is an age-related blurry near vision. If you're over 40, you know what we're talking about. Yeah. It's a common condition that reduces the eye's ability to focus on near objects and affects nearly half of the US population, usually people over the age 40. So this new drug called Vuity is the first and only prescription eye drop for use to treat the condition and is available in drugstores across the country. Are you guys going to try it?
I heard it's like $80-something a month.
Oh my God. Whoa. Is it covered by insurance?
Not yet. That would be like, I don't think it's covered yet by insurance. I wonder how that'll happen though. I wonder if that'll go there.
Well, you either have to continue to hold your book at an arm's length away from you.
Wear your reading glasses,
Wear your reading glasses.
But I could see for a special occasion, people are going to want to do that, or maybe pilots.
But is it permanently changed?
Like 6 hours. 6 hours.
That's
over 6 hours, so enough to read the book.
But like a drop in each eye, and then it's like 5 minutes later or 15 minutes later, you should have a noticeable reduction in presbyopia. But I think there's still, people are going to still have reading glasses, but I could see like, especially if you're driving, and it seems to maybe improve like in low light conditions, because that's a bit of a problem too. I don't know if you guys have noticed when it's low light conditions.
Yeah, I try not to drive. I try not to drive in the dark because I find that my vision is not great in the dark.
Right. So I guess people could wear, their glasses for distance, and then it would eliminate that like back and forth. And I find progressive lenses and like bifocal, like I find them like inefficient.
Yes, I was gonna say I have bifocals, and
I don't know anybody who likes bifocals.
Yeah,
like
I feel like they just don't. Yeah, they just don't do it.
Yeah, they're like that window's too small to read through. It's just
it really is, and it's just not a natural angle. Like the prescription is at the bottom of my because I have myopia, but at the bottom I have the prescription for the reading the near.
Yeah. Then you spend all your time tilting your head to fit that little tiny window.
What I do is I just take my glasses off. I just take them off because it doesn't work.
Yes.
It just doesn't work. So I'll wait to see what the long-term effects are.
I'm curious too. So
because I don't even know what the mechanics are, the biomechanics for how this works exactly. I'd like to find out more about. It sounds promising. I want to see in the 3 to 6 months of people
over time.
I hope people don't start going blind from this.
I know there's always like, you're messing with the eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is not something you can come back from. It's not like, let me stop. And once those are gone, they're gone.
I remember when I was in my early 40s, it was like my arms kind of ran out of room. I mean, I kept moving the book further and further. And
Yes,
further
no,
away.
that's classic. It gets
Yeah.
so far.
And then I kept annoying the people in the subway more and more
Ah!
because as I'm reading it, I'm bugging the person standing next to me or whatever, so I couldn't read the paper anymore. It was just a whole progression. I mean, recently I just mounted my computer on the wall just so I could be like another 3 inches farther away and have glasses. You know, but it's what am I going to do? Put a hole in the wall and see it through the other room? I'm just running out of room. And I do use readers. And again, the readers, they start out at +1, then they went all the way up to +2, and then over the years 2.5. You know, right. So I don't know. I mean, the drug might be interesting. Because
it might be a good special occasion thing. It's not going to eliminate reading glasses, right? Probably. It might be a case.
I don't know. I really don't know enough about this to opine one way or the other.
But I have days in which I do a lot of, you know, like reading or
But you barely read books anymore. Most of your reading is digital, so you can.
Are you saying like if he gets those eye drops, he's going to start reading more books?
Are you going to start reading
more
books?
Because I figured it out. I went digital, and now I can manipulate
and he can
the size
of the large type.
Yeah, I still like a book in a magazine. I like the feel of paper in my hands, and so it's not quite so bad for me yet. I mean, I'm only holding it.
Oh, it is for me. I like that feature where you can make a giant type. I love.
I'm not there yet, but I have found that I can't hold things close. It's like, ooh. Suddenly that's blurry. Let me back this up a little. Oh, okay, that's better.
Oh, also the backlit feature. I like that where you can brighten it. That really helps too.
Ah, okay.
Trying to read. Yeah.
Thicker fonts. I mean, every trick in the book, you know.
Yeah, I'm doing all that.
Yes, tricks for the nearsighted, you know.
But I do miss the beauty of a book. But also there's the instant gratification of like you immediately purchased your book. So yeah, it's a
I like still reading a paper book, you know, so it's going to be very difficult for me. I don't like digital because I don't like that whole blue light streaming into my eyes.
That's the feature. Yes.
Yeah. I'd much rather just do, what is it called? What they read the book out loud, the narration.
Audible. Yeah. Those type things. Yeah. The read aloud. Yeah. I like those too.
Yeah. I prefer that because then because I like to read before I go to bed. Yes. And I don't want to be flooding my eyeballs with a bunch of blue light because then I'm not going to have a restful night's sleep.
But so many readers now have the blue light feature. Are those effective? You know, like
I also, if I have to, or like if I'm watching TV or something, I put those little yellow glasses on.
Yes.
Like these yellow shades I put on to kill the blue light.
Right.
So I'm not getting the blue light, going into my eyes. I use that as well.
That they have, when you push the button on your phone, that makes the thing. It takes.
Yeah, but you know what? I think the human eye is more sophisticated, and I think that there's only so much blue light they can actually remove in those. I'm convinced that those things are fully once you put that on, that you're fully.
A little bit of false advertising.
Yeah, I think it's just not realistic because in order for you to have any kind of contrast, you've got to have some sort of blue light back there.
I see. Okay.
So I'm not convinced that feature is, I think it's more like a placebo type of thing where it makes you feel like, oh, I'm doing something about the blue light. No, I don't think it's real.
I have to read to go to sleep. Like
I tried those glasses and I had tremendous headaches.
What, the orange glasses?
The ones that get rid of the blue light. It was giving me a headache.
Yeah. That's interesting. I haven't heard that before.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
You've become so used to the blue light that
you're a blue light addict.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, I use those little orange glasses if I have to, but mostly I just like to read a book. I'll just read a book because I just don't like the idea of it. Or I'll use the Audible and do that. So we'll see. We'll revisit this and see, what the story is.
I'd be curious in 6 months.
Exactly, to see what's going on there.
Yeah.
So good news. The FDA has decided to bypass these states with their infringing on a woman's right to choose, and they're allowing women to get abortion pill by mail. So the decision lifted a restriction requiring women to go to a medical office or hospital to pick up the pills. And the Biden administration relaxed restrictions around an abortion pill that had prevented women from getting the medication without first making in-person visits to pick up the prescription at medical offices. I think that's great.
And you know something, that pill, apparently you don't need to be under doctor supervision while you're taking it. So you know that was all about, like, in other words, you have to go in person to get it. Then you go home and you take your pill in your own house.
Right.
It means that was exclusively about inconveniencing people.
Oh, absolutely. Setting up obstacles.
Everybody else, right. Everybody else is sending out various medications. And if you don't need to be in the doctor's office and supervised as you're taking it, then there's no reason to make that person go, out of
exactly. And like, who knows where the doctor stands on the whole thing? The doctor could be pro-life and decided that they don't want you to have an abortion. It's like, you don't get to tell people what to do with their life, like, for real, Anyway, I like it because it sidesteps that whole messiness.
That messiness, right.
Yeah.
I appreciate that very much.
And you can do it in the privacy of your home. You don't have to, if you're in one of those states, those states that are,
I'd be curious to know, does that mean in Texas you can get it or no?
Well, I'm worried now about, are they going to try to create some provision that's going to make it illegal to receive this stuff in the mail? That's what
I would think, I'd be curious to know. I would think that that's what's going to happen in Texas.
Yeah, sure. I feel like that's the next step, is they're going to say, okay.
So is that already grandfathered in? Is that?
I don't think so yet.
It's going to be a little difficult. I think it's going to be a little difficult, even though I'll throw this out that this is not my criticism. So I'll just put a disclaimer there, but it's something that I heard in the news yesterday. Yeah. They said they kind of compared it to providing bulletproof vests to kids in school to control gun violence. The pundit that was talking about it was saying that, this is not about controlling unwanted pregnancies. This is about controlling it after the shot has been fired, per se. But these are
the same states that don't allow women to have access to contraception, because look at what Hobby Lobby did, where they cut out the contraception. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say to me, well, don't get pregnant to begin with, but then you don't give me the means to protect myself from pregnancy.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of, and also people coming from the abstinence only.
Right. And the lack of
sex education. Of humanity. Right.
Studies have shown that stuff does not work. That
it has never worked.
That pregnancy rates among people who don't have sex education is actually higher than among people who do have sex education. So history has borne out and shown that doesn't work. Abstinence doesn't work. It has never worked. And so now a woman gets pregnant. They don't hold the men's feet to the fire, because men can just dust off, have a shower, walk away. No skin in that game. They don't even have to wear a condom or supply a condom. And then the woman is on the hook for the next, 18 years if they survive the pregnancy.
Right. And you're making the case of the undue burden.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And then the thing about it is like, okay, you have this opinion, you think that life is so precious and all this other stuff. I think that's great. But then when the woman has the child, she becomes a scourge. And
of some sorts, right? She's right. And look what she did. Yeah. So they're not following up. That's my view.
You're wearing the scarlet letter now, and you can't get aid. Right. You can't.
They're not showing up to help when the baby's here.
Yeah.
So that I have a big beef with.
So to me, it just feels like they just don't want women to have agency over their bodies. They don't like the idea of women having premarital sex. They don't want women to have.
It's also a view that a woman is a vessel. That's part of that's in the mix for some people.
That's fine. But if a woman is a vessel, why do we not have more respect for her body? Right? So why not give her everything that she needs in order to bring this child into the world, happy, healthy, safe, taken care of, if the woman is such a vessel, if the child is just so precious, then why are we not doing everything we
Clearly,
can?
once the baby's born, that baby's not as precious.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying.
There's the woman, apparently.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. It feels like
they only care when the woman is they only care when the child is inside the woman. They don't care about the woman's before
hardship after, or
they don't care about the woman or the child after the child is born. It's like they just, well, our job is done. You're going to have that baby, and then it's going to be your problem. So this whole thing just doesn't make sense to me. Lou, are you going to weigh in at all?
Well, yeah, it's a little difficult sometimes for a man to weigh in on some of this stuff. I weighed in, saying what the comment was. I mean, men sometimes have a different perspective.
Well, what's your manly perspective?
I mean, men have a perspective where, we are required to support it for 18 years. So the fact that the woman has to support it for 18 years,
right?
We still are there. So, unwanted pregnancies affect men just as much as they affect women. I'm not going to say as much, but the man also does have an effect in terms of their financial planning, their logistical planning, their life planning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it does have an effect in terms of that. It doesn't have an effect on an irresponsible male.
Okay.
That's a good point. Yes, there you go. It's about accountability.
If you're a responsible male, it has almost as much, if not as much, of an effect on you as a woman. So yeah, family planning is important. And I get it that family planning starts at, while you're doing the wild Watusi, making sure that, precautions are taken and you're doing whatever is necessary not to. However, as we all know, emergencies arrive and that wild Watusi has to be done.
Here you go. We talked about this with the whole romanticizing, not planning,
throwing caution to the wind.
And
things happen.
High risk behavior. But go ahead.
I mean, it happens.
You're calling it an emergency.
It happens, and then how do you fix that emergency?
Because apparently ejaculation is an emergency. Man must get it out. But go ahead.
Yes, we must. Yeah. Little do you understand. But anyway, so
Jackie,
so
my face is twisted right now.
Your face is
twisted listening to this.
I know they feel it's an emergency.
Right? Exactly. Go ahead, Lou.
It's an emergency. I gotta go now, people. I gotta leave early. That said, if you're dealing with responsible adults, I think that all options should be there for those responsible adults. However, by taking options away from people that have acted irresponsibly or are irresponsible adults, I'm not sure that that's the way to go. And that's kind of...
You're not sure what's the way?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Well, what that means is that these states, some of these states are saying, okay, you haven't been responsible, so we're going to take some options away from you because we want you to act in certain ways. We want you to follow our beliefs or whatever it is. That I don't understand how a government can have religious beliefs to begin with. They're supposed to be the separation
of church and state.
And state. So where does all of this science?
Is what you're saying that suddenly, like, here's this irresponsible male, and here's the government saying, okay, well, an accident happened, and now you're going to suddenly become responsible, and
now you're going to pay.
That's not realistic.
Well, not the government so much as the states. It sounds like the states are saying, well, we're going to
we're going to impose that responsibility, and you're suddenly going to become a responsible adult.
And that has never worked.
That's never worked.
Yeah. I've never seen, a state that imposes such restrictions have a lower birth rate because of it. It just doesn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. I mean, you tax cigarettes. Do people stop smoking? No.
No, actually, no. When you tax cigarettes, people do stuff because they can't afford to smoke.
They couldn't afford it. Some of the fringe people, but the hardcore smokers still figure it out. And smoke.
Yeah, that's true.
And
and the other thing that they've done is they've gotten rid of loosies. So because you can't just buy a cigarette, and because cigarettes are much more expensive, people are not giving out their cigarettes like it. I remember when I was younger, a lot of people used to bum a cigarette off of somebody. And now, I mean, I don't know, I'm not as in touch with that culture because I don't party and stuff like that. But, you don't see as much people, bumming cigarettes off of one another because they're so expensive. It's like, get your own. Never got one of my cigarettes. I need them all.
Yeah. Wow. What does a pack go for these days?
I don't know. Is it like $20 or something like that?
I don't know. You got to take out a mortgage or something.
It's so ridiculously expensive that some people just gave up. They're just like, I can't afford it. I can't afford, which is what they wanted. They wanted
an undue burden.
Right. But that's not the same thing as a biological drive. There's no biological drive to smoking. There's a biological drive to copulate. There's a biological drive.
Ancient primal drive. Built into us.
Yeah, what the government.
It's not artificially created, right?
What the states are doing.
What the states are trying to do is the states are trying to drive responsibility and piety or whatever by their actions, and that doesn't work. That just doesn't work. So at the end of the day, I'm not for limiting people's health choices. I'm not for any of that. I think we should all have our choices. And, just because, sometimes things happen for whatever reason, whether you were acting responsibly or not, you should have all your options, all your health options.
But some of these are also rape and assault. Yeah. And these women are still being forced to carry, there's no dispensation for like, hey, this person raped me. I don't want to carry this child, and I don't want to be forced to carry this rapist child. And it's like, well, tough break, And
that's part of it, I think, too.
Yes.
It is part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But you're saying about men, or I'm trying to connect what you were saying earlier about men having skin in this game.
Well, men have a skin in the game because if you're a responsible male, you should also have a voice. You know
what a lot of young affluent men are doing? They're getting vasectomies. So like these guys that go out to the Hamptons and stuff, and they know they're going to be running around and whatnot, they get vasectomies.
Now that it's
reversible, they get the vasectomies because they want to be able to have fun, but they don't want to end up with some woman that's like, well, I'm pregnant and the baby's yours, and now I want $5,000 a month.
Not everybody's on the pill, and not everybody's on a condom. I mean, some people are on IUDs, even the pill. But also
some women are on the come up. Let's be clear. Yeah. Some women are on the come up. So that's why you have some guys that do that as well, because they're like, look, I know I'm going to be running around. I know that I'm affluent, and I don't want to end up in a situation. So I'm just saying that, the argument could be made that if the guy has skin in the game and he doesn't want to, but then again, this goes back to having forethought, right? Thinking about circumstances before you get into them.
You have to do it way early.
Right.
Well, that would be way early if you're getting yourself a vasectomy.
Yes. And then you reverse it when you get married because
But once again, that's a guy who's semi-responsible,
exactly.
As opposed to the irresponsible guy. Okay.
Right. Exactly. How many Maury Povich episodes have we seen where it's like,
oh my gosh,
you are the father. You are not the father.
Those are my favorite shows. In fact, there's a whole cable now
that whole trash TV.
That has one of those pictures that's all you are the father. I saw it the other day. I said, I should watch it. But then I said,
it's the bane of our existence, I swear. Anyway, so I think it's great news. The other thing I like about it is providers don't have to jeopardize their license or risk being sued. So it just takes a whole, mess out of the equation, and it's straight to the woman, and that's that. And I like that. Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Frenchman to Oak Street, Tremaine, Gentili, and the CBD. The 102.3 WHIV FM, the vibe of the city for human rights and social justice. WHIV 102.3 FM.
And we're back, and apparently Lou has a problem with insisting that I must have the last word about things. All that I asked the man was to clarify his stance on men having skin in the game as far as women having abortions and so forth. And I presented him with some scenarios. And now all of a sudden I'm the villainess of this story and I must have the last word. And so.
Yes, and then some of all the scenarios pertain on an irresponsible guy, an abusive guy. I mean, there's never the responsible guy never gets his due in this thing.
But he gets to decide, is what Tammy was saying.
That's what I'm trying to say.
If he's going to be responsible,
he can decide whether he wants to keep the baby or throw the baby away.
We're speaking up for the responsible guys out there, but
and I don't think you get a gold medal. But for women, there is no. It's not my baby. How do I know it's mine? It's like
even if you're irresponsible, you're
stuck. You're stuck. Yeah. You're carrying that child. There is no burden of proof or paternity test or blood test. There is none of that. It's like you're pregnant and that's it, and it's your baby.
Yeah,
you know.
But every scenario here has the woman being.
I gave a scenario. I gave a scenario. You said irresponsible, and all I asked him was, if the man, let's say, is an abusive partner, but they're a married couple, by society's standards, would he be considered a responsible man? He's married with children. Is he considered an irresponsible man if nobody knows that he's abusive?
No, he's not considered irresponsible.
That's what I'm saying. So this woman has made a decision that I cannot bring another child into this scenario and be trapped by this man. I need to get rid of this child.
Or the first child.
Or maybe she's suffered enough abuse from him that she's decided she doesn't even want to bring a child into that relationship.
To have agency over her life.
And now this guy has rights over her body. I'm just saying that, you when you talk about responsible and irresponsible man, like what constitutes a responsible man?
I don't know. I mean, I've never taken a test. Am I responsible in that? But there's a lot of scenarios where the man should have a vote, I think.
Well, give me those scenarios.
I think,
and I'm not saying that men should not have a right to say anything about their child, but like look at that situation with Sofia Vergara and her.
Oh yeah, that was so loaded.
Where he wanted to keep they had fertilized a bunch of eggs.
Those were like embryos.
Yes, they were embryos, and he, they were getting divorced. She was moving on. She had her new relationship with her new man.
He wanted right to the embryos.
He wanted the embryos. He wanted to unfreeze the embryos and have those babies. And she did not want that. She did not want to be tied to that previous relationship. Now, the embryos were, I imagine, like, okay, I'm in the middle of my career right now. I've got my older son. My career is hot right now. When things, calm down and I've got a break in the action, then we've got these babies on ice because I'm a woman of a certain age already.
Right.
But then the marriage went down south. Does he then have the right to trap her? And I hate to use that term, but let's be real here.
I see that. Yes. I mean, that's what I'm seeing, that's what he was doing.
Because now this woman is tied to him through these children for however long. And then I don't know how.
I don't think you have right to the embryos if you get divorced and you're the woman and those are your embryos.
Right.
You don't have right to them. I don't.
Yes, exactly. Once that
union, that's about controlling. Yes.
Yeah. But I'm just saying,
I'll give you two scenarios.
Give me some scenarios, please.
So scenario number one is a contraception
failure,
which happened. These things happen, regardless of who. And I'm not. It's the man's fault or the woman's fault. But you thought that you were doing something safe, and for whatever reason,
it wasn't. Right.
It's an IUD. Failing, or somebody forgot to take a pill, or something.
Right.
So you have a contraception mishap, and now the two of you is like, well, now what do we do?
Right.
I think that should be a discussion, not just the woman's choice. It should be a discussion. The woman has the final decision, but at least have that discussion.
But you said it right that the woman has the final decision.
The second one is, again, I'm not going to call it a contraception mishap, but it's like a whoops baby. We weren't ready for it.
Yeah, which most babies of the world are whoops babies.
Yeah,
but okay.
But here's another thing. Like, let's say it was a whoops baby. You're going to say, all right, let's do it. Or you're a young couple that just got married, or a newly married couple, and all of a sudden you go get some genetic testing, which is something that you should do if you're planning a child before. Just to make sure you're genetically compatible, that there's no diseases in your family and his family, that when you put them together, you could have problems going forward. So that, you know, all too often you find out about that stuff after, because now you're doing the genetic testing afterwards, or you're comparing histories afterwards. You know, oh, my mom had sickle cell. Oh, you're kidding. Well, my dad, you know, and all of a sudden you're saying we could have problems here. We need special testing, or maybe we're not ready for this kind of responsibility. Blah blah blah. So there are situations where I feel that there's a responsible dialogue that happens.
That should happen. Yeah.
That dialogue needs more than a day.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you need like a week to do that, and not only talk to your spouse, but talk to
if the
your
person's your spouse.
Talk to the people that matter. You know, you're in a circle that you trust enough to get their perspective. That's all. That's why you do need time.
Can I tell you a zany story that I read? This is a true story, by the way.
All right.
So there was this woman who was a doctor, and I guess she was a woman of a certain age. And she gotten involved with another doctor, and they had relations. What she did was, he used a condom and he disposed of the condom in the waste bin. She took the condom.
I see where this is going.
And used the discarded sperm and used it to inseminate herself, had the baby, and then sued him for child support. He said to the judge, look, I used protection. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I don't want responsibility for this child. I did not want this child. I did the right thing. The judge said, well, once you discarded the condom.
She agreed that that's what happened?
Yes, that's exactly what she did.
Wow.
She basically stole his discarded sperm.
Wow.
But the judge didn't see it that way. The judge didn't see it as stealing because it was discarded. It's kind of like when you put your trash out.
That's like DNA. That's like picking up DNA.
But that's when the judge ruled that he was on the hook because it wasn't stealing, because when he got rid of it, it's no longer his to have any dominion over, so to speak. And
wow,
so
that's unbelievable.
And do what she wanted with it. And so as a result, he's now on the hook for this child. Tell me that's not the crazy.
I will be Googling that story later.
I'd love to like stalk this judge.
That is some crazy story.
But I could have, like, this man got stuck with it. Like, he did everything right. The only thing he did wrong is he should have flushed the condom down the toilet. But other than that, like, he brought protection, he wore protection. He got, like, he made sure to discard it, but his fatal flaw, per the judge, was
not discard efficiently.
He didn't discard it efficiently, and because he discarded it, it wasn't his anymore to claim theft.
Wow.
Yeah.
Judge Judy, where are you when we?
Oh my God.
That's pretty bananas.
In fact, Judge Wapner for this.
Judge Wapner.
When I read that, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, that is so scandalous. How does this woman hold her head up?
That's a one-off story though. Wow. Yeah.
But this kind of stuff happens with this kind. I mean, that
cannot possibly happen all the time.
This is the kind of stuff that does happen, where women are on the come up and they get these guys, and it's a whole industry. Like,
yeah, well, that's not the majority of people who are
it's not the majority of people, but there is a segment of the population that this is what they do. They target men.
Oh, that's outrageous.
I am telling you that this exists, where there are women on the come up and they get their hands on a guy, they get him in a compromising position and get these guys in these positions. And she's like, oh, I'll get rid of the condom for you, honey. And then bags it up, puts it in a little ice thing and impregnates herself. And then 4 months, 6 months later, they're slapped with paternity suit. And,
wow.
And now they've got money for however many years. It happens. It does happen.
Well, this is a follow-up to your young eligible men with money getting vasectomy ahead of time. That's like, right. Yeah.
And so I'm piggybacking on what you're saying, Lou, about men do have some skin in the game, and this is where a woman's choice tends to go wrong for men. And, you know, I see that, but I also see the other side where a woman could be trapped by a husband or a boyfriend who wants to control her with the fetus, you know, and having the child and locking her in and stuff like that. And that happens too. And you know, what is a woman to do? You know,
you will have 3.2 children and you will like it, you know.
Yeah, you're mine, woman, and I will beat you senseless if you try to leave, you know, and I'll kill the child if you try to leave me. And you know, it's always
the guy's the bad guy.
No, the guy's not always the bad guy. I'm just saying that there are scenarios.
From Stephen
I'm
King,
saying,
you know,
I saw the movie. I'm just saying that there are scenarios where it's not ideal. And then what about this idea of like doctors, you know, with this whole wait 24 hours thing? That cheesy.
That is so controlling.
Yeah, it's like, you know,
that's roadblocks. That's condescending.
From the moment I found out that I was pregnant, and I found you, and I made the appointment, and I made the plans, and I took off work, and I borrowed and scraped this money together.
That's putting up roadblocks on purpose. That is so.
And tell me, come back tomorrow. How dare you? I thought about this. I've been thinking about nothing but this. That's why I'm here. Don't you tell me I need 24 more hours to think about it. You're just trying to.
Now it's double standard that you're doing, because now the women are always responsible. There's no such thing as an irresponsible woman.
You can't be irresponsible by default.
How can you not be irresponsible?
I mean, you can't not be responsible once you're pregnant.
So
you're carrying the child. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
24 hours.
That's not what I'm saying.
All men are irresponsible.
I'm saying, no, that's not what I'm saying. Don't twist my words. I'm saying that it's a very difficult situation, and that is why the decision should, for the most part, remain a woman's right to choose.
Because she can't be irresponsible until she gives birth.
By very definition of being the carrier of the child, you can't be irresponsible. Until
that baby is born, she's on the hook. Right.
You're on the hook.
She can be irresponsible once the baby is born.
You can be irresponsible while you're carrying the baby. You could be on crystal meth or whatever, you know, and have a baby with birth defects. I'm just a girl recently sued the doctor for her mother bringing her into the world. She had spina bifida, and she successfully sued the doctor, saying she never should have been born.
That was in the UK, I think.
Yeah, but she won her case, you know. So you can be irresponsible in that way, but in the way of like walking away and saying, I don't want this. Women can't do that. By the very nature of pregnancy, you can't walk away and say, I don't want this. And then she could lose her job because they don't want a woman who's going to be taking time off. Maybe the job you're doing does not lend to being pregnant. You know, there's a lot of burden and hardship that comes with being pregnant.
Right, you're burdened, and
in a way that a man will never be burdened.
Yes, all right.
Unless he wants to be burdened. You see what I'm saying? If
choosing the burden.
Yes. But I never heard of a man being turned away from a job because his wife is his girlfriend is having a baby. Have you ever heard of that? No,
I've never heard of that.
All right, so we're moving on. Are we okay now? Are we?
Actually, we're almost out of time. I think we are out of time.
We'll have to talk another time about it. Yeah. I just got on a roll here, and I was just like, on fire. Anyway, my loves, that's all the time we have today. I had fun, even though Lou was like, you know, spinning a little out of control here.
Oh, I thought he was.
You guys are great as always. I love you. Like, have a happy holiday, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.